white-billed, which becomes the 9th species in Louisiana. Humnet, which some of y'all may know, is an email server that, or email listserv that provides information about hummingbirds, comes in, and that helps get the word out. So we start getting more and more hosts telling us, oh, well, I've got this winter bird, which you come and talk, come to see about maybe in my house. The numbers are really starting to go up. And Nancy produces her first book, which is called Louisiana Hummingbirds. It's a small, pamphlet-sized kind of book, but it's distributed across the state through the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And, of course, interest in hummingbirds explodes because everybody says, oh, hummingbirds, they're beautiful. I've seen those. I want to get them. How do I get them in my yard? And finally, there's somebody telling them, don't take your feeders down. People used to say in Louisiana and elsewhere, put your feeders up at Mother's Day and take them down at Labor Day. Well, Mother's Day in a lot of places in Louisiana is a little late to be putting them up because the bulk of the birds pass through in late March and through April. By the middle of May, most of all of them are on their breeding grounds, and if you don't live in a good habitat for breeding, you're not going to see them very much. Labor Day is the 1st of September. The bulk of our migrants come through Louisiana in middle to late September. So all these people were dutifully taking down their feeders and missing the majority of what was going through. Nancy told them, don't take your feeders down. Leave them up, see what happens with the winter, and at least leave up your feeders until the last bird you see was a week ago or more. And people would say, but if I don't take the feeders down, they won't migrate, and then they'll stay here and die. But you'd have to explain, no, the ones that are staying are ones that are coming to us from California or Oregon or Canada or Montana or whatever. The fact that you leave your feeder up is not going to pull them off of their migratory path going from there to central Mexico 1,000 miles out of the way just because you happen to have a feeder up. They don't have a little alert system going out to them saying, come on down, go over this way instead. We don't know why they started coming this way, but we can take care of them when they do. Nancy produced a second book called Hummingbird Gardens in 1996, and that caught interest nationwide. And she did 200 and some odd presentations about the book across the country, signing things and lectures and so forth. And she trained a growing number of hummingbird banders who wanted to work in other parts of the country, including one y'all may know who became relatively famous as this in Alabama named Bob Sargent, who a lot of people think invented the study of winter hummingbirds. Well, he did popularize it a lot in Mississippi, Alabama, over into Georgia, and so forth, and he trained an awful lot of people. But he had to learn somewhere, and this is where he learned. So, we move into the 2000s, and the first year we got a third bander in place. We got 416 birds made. Next year, 482, 481, 510, and 355. This is the year before Hurricane Katrina came. And this is about the time that I was getting back thoroughly into birding. I'd stepped out of it for a while. I started doing other things outside of when I was in college, so I spent a lot less time birding. I'd had the typical midlife crisis at the age of 38, 40, and while most guys will go out and get a sports car or a new girlfriend or whatever the case may be, mine was rodeo, and I decided at the age of 39 to become a steer wrestler. I did that for 5 years, had a lot of fun, discovered I was probably at the rate I was going and the rate I was aging, probably no more than 6 months or so away from a hospitalization of some sort. And looking around for something to spend all this time I'd spent rodeoing on, said, I'm going to put this back into birds and go do a lot more with bird. I put up hummingbird feeders. I had been in touch with Nancy online at the time. She had given me some pointers about going out there and seeing different other kinds of birds and about hummingbirds and so forth. And in August of '05, someone posted on HumNet that a friend of his had returned, a presumable returnee rufous, and that the neighborhood he described that this friend lived in was clearly mine. And I looked at it and said, he can't be more than 2 or 3 blocks from me. And so I grumbled that, you know, if it had been my bird, I would have had some friend posting about it on HumNet. I would have given that bird a really proper write-up and posted it directly. And Nancy contacted me and said, what are you putting in your feeders? Are you putting in 4-to-1 sugar water or what? I said, yes, that's what everybody recommends. She says, and that's perfectly safe. But most of the plants that they really like in migration have a considerably higher sugar content than 4-to-1, which is 20% roughly. Try going 3-to-1, which is 25%. That's still well below what a lot of the plants they have are. If that bird is in your neighborhood, he knows where every feeder is within half a mile. He will find yours. So I went out that same day, changed the feeders. I'm at work the next day. My partner calls and says, there's one of these hummingbirds out here that doesn't look like all the others. I said, what do you mean? He says, it's all brown. I said, I'll be home in 5 minutes. And sure enough, there's an adult male rufous in my backyard. Now, this is August 15th. August 22nd, thereabouts, I see a female rufous. You know, figure out from the swarms of ruby throats by the tail. Then I start looking at the male ruby rufous is coming in, and I'm wondering if the light's playing tricks with my eyes, or is the color brown on his back changing a little bit? I kept looking at this one time, it's really, really bright, rusty cinnamon brown, and then the next one is kind of a little bit more towards sandalwood. But, you know, it's still a male rufous, obviously. I think, I don't know. I think I might have 2 of them. August 29th comes around, and Hurricane Katrina hits. Nancy has to evacuate New Orleans. She has a brother in Baton Rouge. She comes up to stay with him. Of course, floods happen down there. No one can go back to New Orleans for weeks. So she calls me up and says, as long as I'm going to be stuck in Baton Rouge, do you want me to come over and try to catch your birds and ban them? I said, oh, sure. So Nancy comes to my house. 7 a.m., she rings the doorbell on Saturday morning. I walk down. She says, I used to man at that house right there, like 2 doors, 3 doors down. Those people moved away at the end of last winter. I bet one of these birds or more is probably one of theirs. So we set up the traps. 10 minutes later, we caught the first male rufous. Another 5 minutes, we caught the female. Sure enough, about 5 minutes after that, we catch the second male rufous. All 3 of which she abandoned at the other house down the street from me in 3 separate years. So one of them had been abandoned there and then returned 2 winters. One had been abandoned there and returned the previous winter, and one had just been abandoned the last winter. So as she said, I'm sorry they're all secondhand birds, but you know, this is good. We know now at least that they're back, and that any others that might come back that will land there now know there's a place, or they can find a place nearby to stay. So worked out well. Nancy said, as we were packing things up, she mentioned in passing that one of her assistants, who has been helping her the last several years in New Orleans, is preparing to be heading to Central America for 6 months or so to serve in some missionary work. And I said, well, I don't know what I could do to help, but my day job is not real busy in the fall and early winter, and if there's anything I can help you with, I'll be glad to. She says, I know a sucker when I see one. So of sites in the New Orleans area and the South. People who left and never came back, houses that all the habitat was destroyed, so even when they came back, there was nothing, they had no trees, no plants, anything like that. So our numbers really took a tumble at that point. And they bounced up a little bit, then they started going down again, and down, and down. So we're starting to wonder, why were we getting 400 and 500 birds in the early part of the millennium, but we're not getting those anymore now? Is it something to do with the what's happening on the breeding grounds? Or are they more than going to their traditional wintering grounds instead of coming our way? Did we lose a bunch in the year that was Katrina? And because they didn't survive in whatever fashion, they ended up not reproducing the next year, so they didn't pass on any tendencies to come to our area. We weren't sure. So at this point in 2010, 2011, we're really starting to wonder how much longer we'll be able to keep going with the project, because we were busting our butts to get all over South Louisiana to get this incredibly shrinking number of birds. We're down to a little bit more than a third of what we were getting in our peak. And then 2011, 2012 comes, and I happened to notice by, I don't know, I think it was early October, Nancy and I had already been to like 7 or 8 houses because people said, I've got several wintering hummingbirds or rufous and black-chips aboard. Why don't you come early this winter and go ahead and try to get some of these out of the way? And I decided, since I'm handling the data, I'm going to go back and look. And I realized at that point in 2011, 2012, we had already banded 3 times as many wintering hummingbirds by that point in the season as we had in any other year prior. And people were reporting a lot more that we hadn't gotten to yet. And I told Nancy, something's happening this year. This is going to be a good year. And as it turned out, we got 815 new banded birds that year. These are just, all these numbers, these are just additional new banded birds. This doesn't count anywhere from 60, 70, 80, 100 returnees. Sometimes we have a big year like this. We only had 7 species that year, but I want to say that 564 of these 815 were rufous, and the vast majority of those were immature birds, which told us, even though we don't know, we can't say any other piece of evidence, but this is really good evidence. This was a good breeding season because there are so many young showing up. And what we had been noticing in these declining years is that a lot of the birds, the new birds we were banding were adults that had probably come and we didn't catch the first year. We weren't catching very many new young birds until all of a sudden we did this point. The next year, we still had 653, which is typical. We'll see a boom of a year and then a slow decline from there. You see we're jumping ahead the last few years. It's really been going down again. We've really seen a marked decrease in wintering birds. Now, in 2016, 2017, 2018, part of the problem we've had here has been effort, because in 2016, Nancy ended up having a health crisis. She had a spinal infection that, as it turns out, the doctor said, you're lucky you came into the emergency room when you did, because if you come in the next day, you probably would have come in with a sheet over your head. So she didn't get to band very much that winter. But luckily, by this point, we've got 5 or 6 permitted banders and people who can put the bands on. We just couldn't get out and do like Nancy did during the years, because she, as a housewife, as she says, she didn't have anything else she'd rather be doing. She'd certainly much rather band hummingbirds than vacuum the carpet or do laundry or whatever. So as long as husband's not complaining too much about having to go out to get his dinner instead of having it cooked at home, and what man doesn't want to get to go out to on, fairly regular basis. She was free to go there. So once that, just hopefully after this year, now that she's back in the saddle, we're hoping these numbers are going to pick back up. But it's always a numbers game based upon effort and what's out there. There could be a ton of birds out there, and we don't get to them because of one thing or another, or we could be going beating the bushes at every single house that we could get to, and there just aren't that many birds. So you can't necessarily compare any one given year with any other given year because of those variables. But over time, you can see trends to it. So we've noticed, like I say, that the numbers fluctuate in cycles. This is what it looks like on a bar graph. You can see the points at which we have sudden jumps in 95 and 2001, 2000. Those are the points at which we picked up additional fully master permitted bands. Of course, the big year and the one following it, we can't explain that by effort. That was just, it happened that there were some good birds, people's yards, and practically vacuum them out of the trees. That winter, in my yard, there were 24 individual hummingbirds of 5 species. I live about 4 blocks from one of our other good banding sites. He had 32. And 3 of those birds were on both lists because the birds were going back and forth between us. But when you have little bit, and my entire lot is not much bigger than this room, maybe a little bit deeper. So when you can have 24 wintering hummingbirds in a space that small, you know that they're packing them in somehow. The numbers are also, like I say, partly effort driven. Again, you can see with the peaks in the years and so forth. It also depends on the number of hours. We are volunteers, all of us. None of us get paid for this, and most of us, except for Nancy, actually have jobs we have to do, so we have to work it around those things. But we do everything we can with it. And sometimes, the effort just isn't there. Sometimes we're able to spend a lot of time. In a good year, in any of these years where we have big numbers, immature birds are going to outnumber the adults. Like I said, it's probably the breeding season was a good year. In poor years, the number of adults will actually outnumber the number of young birds. And it reflects primarily the fact that a lot of them are returnees. So look at some of these birds several years in a row. You can count them every year, but you get to the point where how long are they going to be able to keep coming back? We've learned rufous are the primary species we get in years where we have large numbers. Somewhere between 50 and 70% of all the hummingbirds we handle in a good year are going to be rufous. Ruby throats and black chins are a lot more common than we used to think, and they are the primary species we get when we have years with low numbers. They don't seem to fluctuate as much. In fact, the last couple of years, ruby throats and black chins have dramatically outnumbered the number of rufous that we get. Ruby throats can be as high as 40% of the captures that we get, and black chins can be as high as 29%. And those would both be in 1 year, so 69% of the birds in a given year could be just those 2 species if it's a low numbered year. Buckbelly is probably our longest lived, most regular returnees. We had one buck-bellied in Louisiana that came back to the same yard for at least 9 seasons. It came back 8 years after the first initial season that it spent the winter there. It wasn't necessarily caught every year, but it occupied the same little spot in the yard every time. And we did catch it in the 9th year to make sure that it was in fact the same bird. They're also the smartest of the hummingbirds that we have in Louisiana. Nancy calls them Rhodes Scholars of the hummingbird world. They get incredibly difficult to catch. Once you've caught the bird in one kind of a trap, chances are real good you probably won't catch them in that same kind of trap again next year. So when they come back 6, 7, 8, 9 years in a row, it's really, really hard to figure out a way to catch them. I'll give you 2 little anecdotes about for years, Nancy in her own yard had a greenhouse where she also grew orchids and so forth. And when she would go to band on a given day in the yard, she'd take down all the extra feeders and put them in the greenhouse so that the only place that they could go with the feeders were inside her traps. One year, she had a buffalo in her yard. She was only running a few feeders that year. The numbers were kind of down. Greenhouse was unoccupied. She'd given up on orchids and so forth. And she saw the buck belly go in the greenhouse, looking on the ground for where she used to hide the feeders that she would take on things. So birds, obviously has some, a fairly decent memory. This last buck belly that she had in her yard until just a couple of years ago got to the point where it knew her and knew her car. So she would sit, the way her house is situated, she can't see all of the feeders in her front yard from sitting on her porch. So she would go sit in her car and look back towards the house. The bird would come in and fly up to her window of the car and look at her in the car. So he knew she was in there. And the last year that they tried to catch the bird, they put the feeder up and it would just, put the trap up, put the trap up, and one day, she had one of her assistants was over, and he had to go to a meeting for his day job, and Nancy was parked behind his car, so she said, well, just take the van. She gave him the keys. He drove off. Bird went right in the trap. He saw the van leave, so he thought the person who was going to cause him trouble was gone. We often put up, to get the birds accustomed to being trapped, we put up what we call dummy traps. It's not because the birds are dummies, it's because it's a dummy of a trap. It's designed so that they can go in and out of an enclosure like a cage without any way of getting trapped in there accidentally. So we have a dummy. The same Buffy, one of the years, it would go in the dummy, no problem. We caught it in the trap. The next year we put the dummy up. The bird would go in and out of the dummy, no trouble. We swapped it for the trap, wouldn't go near it. You can tell the difference between the dummy and the trap. Eventually, Nancy just put the trap out there. The bird finally, someone was going in and out. She said, okay, we're going to leave it up there. We have these remote control units that close the doors. She said, I'm going to, before we try to catch the bird, I'm going to put the unit on top too, just so that it looks useful. She put the unit on top, Buffy flies in, boom, would not go close. He knew that the difference between the trap with the unit and the trap without the unit, that, which one was going to be a problem for him. So these are actually, fairly intelligent birds. I know human beings that would not follow or would So they come back, like I said, routinely 6 to 8 years, with the record being 9 years. And they're Nancy's favorite bird. They're also the one that you can see here on our shirts. Calliopes seldom come back because we just don't ban enough numbers of them to really get a feel for whether or not the few returnees we get are typical or not. The same is true for broadtails. We very seldom get broadtails back. Although I will mention we had a house in Baton Rouge that several years ago, they had 2 broadtails, both male. We caught both of them and abandoned them. Next year, both of them came back to the same yard. The homeowner was absolutely thrilled.